This story is by Hope Naumam. We were teenagers taking a hike down in the Box Canyon outside of Twin Falls. It was late evening. We started our hike. I always watch for animal tracks and noticed an impression about 16 inches long and 4 to 5 inches wide, the only one in the watercress covered spring runoff. I stuck my hand down in it and felt its depth. It was about 5 to 6 inches deep. I thought it was an odd track because it was filled with water. It appeared to be triangular in shape. We hiked as it got dark. I heard bipedal sounds and snorty breathing following alongside us and stopping when we did, but I saw nothing. We decided to exit back to the spring. As we walked, I told the others to watch for skunks because I could smell one. Then we stopped for a breather at the base of the canyon wall. As I looked up the wall to a ledge protruding halfway up, I saw it. I thought it was a human silhouette sitting on a rock. Then it stood up taller than any man I had ever seen. I estimate it was 7 to 8 feet tall. The moon was slightly behind it as its face was in the shadow, but I could see a long hair waving from the shoulders to the legs, looking very muscular, no neck, just watching us. So close, I was afraid to point. I said to the others, "What is that?" My boyfriend looked up and said, "Run!" And we did all run the way up the canyon to the road. I think there was probably 2 of them running beside us and one sitting on the ledge. And we never went back there again and never told anyone but his mom. And I don't think they are hard to find if you seriously want to find one. There is a world history blog that asks a question. Did Alexander the Great find Yeti? Many people answer yes and many people answer no. But what actually might be behind the record being examined could be a lot more interesting. The blogger, Dr. Myland Brown, set up the question after reading the Alexandri translation. He writes that it reads, "As though Alexander's men, in the course of the invasion of India, fought a pitched battle with the tribe of Yeti." The passage Brown quotes is this one: "Those captured were hairy, not only their heads, but the rest of their bodies. Their nails were rather like beast claws. They used their nails, according to the report, as if they were iron tools. With these they tore asunder their fishes and even the less solid foods of wood. Everything else they cleft with sharp stones, for iron they did not possess. For clothing they wore skins of animals, some even the thick skins of larger fish." Out of context, with a little knowledge of the traditional Yetis in the Himalaya areas, perhaps one could make such an error. Brown gives the original passage, and therein are contained some important details. Alexander the Great and the Yetis now seem to be gaining a life of its own, as it is popping up in email communications. I suppose I best deal with it here, within the realistic context of hominology. Okay, so this goes talking about the ships trying to land. There was some aborigines, I guess you would say, that were with spears to keep these guys from coming on land. So a fight took place, and I'm not going to read it because it's really hard to read because they're talking kind of like in a Gaelic. So the natives and the shipmates fought. They actually captured some men, they call it. Some were killed in fight, others were captured, but some escaped into the hills. Those captured were hairy, not only their heads, but the rest of their bodies. And it talks about just what I repeated earlier. Their nails were like beast claws. Okay, that is much more than just a description of them being hairy bipedals. We become aware that these hairy people lived in stifling cabins, wore clothing of animal skins and fish skins, which is something we don't see today. I'm not sure what they were talking about as a Yeti. I don't think it's really the Yetis as we have today that they were talking about with Alexander the Great in India. Might have been some sort of Neanderthal man is what I'm saying. Okay, so let's go. So the oldest contemporary account of sighting that seems to be of a Sasquatch so far traces back from a Watchman newspaper in New York State on the 22nd of September 1818. This report states that a few days earlier, near Ellisburg, a gentleman of unquestionable veracity saw an animal resembling a wild man in the woods. This would seem to indicate that the supposed wild man in the woods was already a well-known figure of legend or rumor. The creature was described as being a large man, but covered in hair. It walked out the woods onto the road a few yards in front of the witness. Seeing the human, the creature turned and ran off, leaning forward as it did. The creature left behind footsteps that were human-like, but very wide at the toes. In 1851, 2 hunters out in Green Country, Arkansas, watched a Sasquatch apparently trying to catch a calf from a herd of domestic cattle. They described the creature as being an animal bearing the unmistakable likeness of humanity. He was gigantic in stature, the body being covered with hair, and the head with long locks that fairly enveloped the neck and shoulders. As soon as the creature realized that the humans were in the vicinity, it stopped chasing the cattle and instead stared at the hunters, then turned and ran off at high speed. It left behind human-like footprints about 13 inches long. The newspaper that reported the incident speculated that the creature was a human survivor of an earthquake that had taken place in 1811. It was thought that he had taken to the animal-like existence to survive, so had acquired animal-like hair and appearance. It was not an uncommon theory in the 19th century. Thank you for joining me. My name is Robin Hyatt, Bigfoot Whispers Hub. I'm glad you found this page. We are going to just read some real fun stuff and stories throughout this time. I'm going to do a little research on Bigfoot. I know of a story I was raised with in a church I belong to, so I'm going to read that to you next time. Thank you for joining me. Check out my Patreon page. It's in the message below. And I am a medium and intuitive, and I do have what I call a white Canada that speaks to me. I have a few of my sessions that are for Patreon members only, but I put my 3rd session open to the public, so you can kind of see what she is giving me. I call her she. She has a name, and you'll receive her name on my Patreon page. Actually, this is a very spiritual experience for me. I usually deal with cold cases and missing children. They're very emotional and very negative. But to have a Bigfoot come through, which kind of shocked me, as you will see on my other channels, I'm enjoying this because she's a very spiritual person. And it's actually kind of invigorated my whole being and body and health, which is very interesting. When she comes through, she's very concise, and she very much wants my attention when she wants my attention. So I think she's giving me the day off today. So check out my Patreon page. I just give information. I can't interpret it because a lot of stuff she gives me is beyond my comprehension. So maybe I'm believing she's talking to me so I can talk to you, give you information. She knows that many are seeking them, but there's a spiritual part of them. And there's a part you're not going to understand. It's not for us to understand, and because it's not of human existence that we can go in and out of realms, which is a new concept for me. Peace out.